Hey, Ed here, lessons from my mentor. This one is at the request of several of my subscribers who, after watching Should I Stay or Should I Go? And there was another one that I did on how to analyze, competing job offers and compared to where you might be currently. And it was around bad bosses. And should you stay or should you go if you have a bad boss? And my feeling and what I learned from my mentors is if it's toxic, unrepairable, you've got to go. If if it's something, if everything else is really good and it's not toxic, but just a bad boss, then it's worth fighting for. So that's what I want to specifically talk about is in those cases where you have bad boss, but it's not toxic, they're not psychopaths, and so it may be salvageable. So how do you salvage that? And this is what I was taught from my mentor. The very first thing is you need to do deep introspection yourself. Maybe it's you, or certainly a part of it is going to be you. I guarantee you that much. How much, I don't know. That's why you need to do the introspection. And if you have a buddy that you can work with, could be a spouse, partner, could be a work buddy that you trust, I think it's good to bounce these sort of things with them, a mentor. So really look at yourself, like what is the conflict? Why are we having this conflict? Is it repairable? And what can I do to make things better? Is there something that I'm doing that's setting my boss off to be this, bad boss? So that's the first thing is you got to look at yourself. The second thing is if you can identify the issues, there's probably more than one thing, but if you can identify it and then try to address it. So this will require a couple of things. One, it will probably require you to have a crucial conversation that you initiate with your boss. Always awkward, but must do if you want to salvage the situation. And again, if they're not a psychopath and you think it's repairable, they might really appreciate you saying something. I loved it when I had someone who reported to me come to me proactively and say, Ed, I'm really struggling with this. Whenever you do that, it causes me to think this, and then I get all stressed out or it hurts my mental well-being, whatever it might be. But I've had some people do that, and while it's uncomfortable later on, I'm like really glad they did it because it's an opportunity for me to grow, and it might be an opportunity for them to grow as well, and certainly helps the company as we figure these things out. So have that crucial conversation. Don't just complain about it. And I got to be careful with my words. Yeah, just don't complain about it and be a whiner, but actually do something. And that's a really good thing to do is just talk about it. Hey, I really struggle with a situation here, and when this happens, that happens. The second thing is identify the proper behavior in your mind that you would like to see from your manager, and then encourage it. So this is just basic stuff you do as a parent and it should do as a leader. But now, you have manage down, as they say, where people report to you, you manage to your side with peers, and this is managing up. And a lot of people talk about managing up. This is one way of doing it. So whatever those behaviors are, those traits are that you would like to see more of, you got to compliment them. So whenever you see a glimpse of them, because certainly they're doing some things well, compliment them. Like, Joe, the way that you led through that crisis and the way you kept your cool, or the way that you handled that situation with that employee, whatever it might be, compliment them. And none of these are quick fixes, right? So you can need to give yourself, I say 6 months, 180 days of trying these things. And if they don't work and you're miserable because you have a bad boss, then you should go. What I like about the approach when it takes 180 days is it gives you time for your boss to go. And I've had that happen myself, where I was sort of in a bad boss situation. They weren't a psychopath. They just weren't trained. They just didn't have, they've never really led people. And it was really awkward and no fun. I'm the type that always loved Mondays. And I started like begrudgingly thinking about Mondays. And so I was sort of putting some of these things in play and buying some time and some introspection, and that person left. So that can happen. So 180-day plans work both ways, but encourage the behaviors that you want to see. So again, have that crucial conversation. Meet with the person. Tell them where you're struggling. Second is encourage the appropriate behaviors that you see in that person. And then finally, have someone you can speak with and bounce ideas off of. They don't have to be in your organization. It just needs to be a very trusted person. I was lucky when I was at Cleveland Clinic, my next door neighbor was head of HR, and she was just fun person, a good person, and a smart person with tremendous insight and organizational knowledge, which I didn't have, right? I was more of definitely the rookie. And so it was great to have someone I could confide in. So whether it was bad boss or something else, I'm not saying it was bad boss, so don't put these two together, but I'm just using this as an example of someone you can confide in. I would come back from a meeting or come back from a situation, and I knew I could go into that person's office, shut the door, and just be myself without any fear of any sort of repercussion. That's what I'm talking about. So find that person. Again, you may have a formal mentor relationship, which you should have, as you know from watching these videos. But if you don't, someone that you can confide in that'll hold your trust and talk through the different scenarios, like what you do. And it's especially helpful. I said they don't have to be in the organization, but if they are in the organization, it can be helpful because they will know that individual as well, and that might give you some additional insight. I didn't have a bad boss situation. Maybe this is for another episode, a bad peer situation. And it was great to be able to go, to a common peer and say, man, is it me or is this a common thing with that person? It turned out it was a thing with that person. And then it's like, okay, how did you navigate that? Because you seem to have a decent working relationship. I need to do the same thing. What are some things that I can do for myself, to myself, change myself, and how can I work best with that person? So it's really good to be able to have that sort of outlet. Again, it doesn't have to be someone in the workplace. If it is, it's great because they'll have all that knowledge of that person, of the organization, but just make sure it's someone super, super trustworthy. And that's what you need to do. So again, in quick review, if it's toxic, if they're a bad person, you need to go. You need to figure out an exit plan and go because they're not going to change. And you don't want to have a miserable life while you wait for them to leave. So you look for the change. Second, if they're not psychopath, then look at yourself first. Spend a lot of time thinking, man, is it me? What part of it? Some part of it's going to be you, but maybe the majority is you. You got to have that honest talk with yourself and have someone help you with that. And then the second is complement those behaviors, managing up that you want them to repeat, that you want them to see. Third was have a crucial conversation with them. There's nothing like bringing it out in the open, as tough as that can be. But 90% of times it leads to really good outcomes. And fourth, have that person again that you can confide in and just talk through things, about the situation with the bad boss, and they can provide some really good support and really good ideas. So lessons from my mentors. Look, if there's other topics that you're interested in, and I've been taught myself by mentors, I will be happy to share them. Just drop me a note. You know how to get a hold of me, and we'll do it.